They told him to wait outside, unaware he owned the airline. It all started with a pair of scuffed sneakers. Not exactly the kind of footwear you'd expect on the feet of a man who had just taken the reins of a multi-billion-dollar airline. But that's exactly why he wore them. Darnell Whitaker, 44, leaned against the passenger drop-off rail outside Terminal B at Hartsfield-Jackson International. No entourage. No luxury luggage. Just a faded backpack slung over one shoulder and a standard boarding pass for Gate 24A in hand. A man in a gray hoodie, jeans, and worn sneakers, standing quietly beneath the very banner he'd paid to have redesigned, SkyConnect Airlines. His breath left soft clouds in the crisp morning air as planes lifted off into the sky every few minutes. And yet, no one glanced at him twice. That was the point. No one recognized the man being overlooked, the man who now owned it all. Just 3 weeks earlier, Darnell had declined the grand PR welcome offered after his promotion to CEO. No curated tour, no staged break-room greetings, no corporate coffee waiting in a polished conference room. He didn't want the cleaned-up version. He wanted the truth. What triggered that decision was a letter, a customer complaint from an elderly black woman in Baton Rouge. She'd been escorted out of a premium lounge she had paid for because, in the staff's words, they weren't sure she belonged. Those 5 words lodged in Darnell's chest. Weren't sure she belonged. That was enough. Now, here he was. Quiet. Anonymous. Watching. A shuttle hissed as it pulled away behind him. Darnell checked his phone, boarding in 52 minutes. He moved through the terminal like any other traveler, unnoticed. Past flight crews, bustling kiosks, a group of teens in matching band shirts, and an airport janitor who gave him the only nod he'd received that morning. At Gate 24A, a sign pointed toward the SkyConnect Premium Lounge, his idea. His brainchild. It was meant to be a haven of inclusion, comfort, and respect. A place where status was earned, not assumed. A place where everyone who qualified felt seen. Darnell adjusted his cap and stepped off the main path toward the glass-paneled entrance. Behind the counter stood a woman in her late 30s, slim, with a tight ponytail and a name tag that read Taylor, shift lead. Her eyes skimmed over him like he wasn't there. He smiled politely, reached into his wallet, and pulled out his Diamond Elite membership card. Before he could say a word, she raised her hand sharply. "Sir, this lounge is for SkyConnect Premium members only." "I know," Darnell replied calmly. "I'm one. Diamond Elite, actually." She didn't glance at the card. Didn't ask for ID. She just crossed her arms. "We've had a lot of people trying to sneak in lately," she said flatly. "You'll need to wait outside. Security's right over there if you have questions." He paused, not in anger, but in reflection. How many others had she spoken to like this? How many people who looked like him had been told the same? He gave a small nod and quietly backed away. The nearby security guard eyed him, but said nothing. Taylor turned to whisper something to another lounge worker, who smirked. Darnell walked a few feet down the corridor and sat by a vending machine, phone in hand. He wasn't upset. He was processing. Because sometimes, silence tells you more than noise ever could. But what he heard next, through the thin glass wall behind him, made staying quiet impossible. "Got promoted ahead of me." Some of them were great, no doubt. But many? They just knew the right people, wore the right clothes, said the right things in the right rooms. I kept my head down, did my job, and watched. I watched folks like Taylor and Riley walk in with half my experience and double the audacity. And I told myself, maybe next year. Maybe the system will see me. She glanced at Taylor, then back to Darnell. But the system never looked. Until now. The lounge had gone silent. Not the uncomfortable silence of embarrassment, but the solemn quiet of a moment landing, hard and deep. Darnell stepped closer, his voice lower now, more personal. What's your name? Dolores. Dolores Green. Concourse supervisor, technically. But I've been everything from ramp lead to trainer to overnight supervisor. Whatever they needed. He extended a hand. Ms. Green, thank you. She hesitated only a second before taking it. Her grip was firm. You want to make things right, Mr. Whitaker, she said, holding his gaze. Start by listening to the people who've been here. Who've kept things running even when nobody saw them. I will, he said. Then he turned back to the room. Every employee in this lounge will be temporarily reassigned while we conduct a full review. Effective immediately. Taylor flinched, opening her mouth, but Darnell raised a hand without even looking her way. You can appeal through HR. But you won't do it standing behind that counter. Security moved gently to the side. Taylor and Riley stepped out, their faces pale. We're also reopening a dormant internal audit process. One that looks beyond numbers and checks the human temperature of our service, every race, gender, age, disability status. If you serve our customers, you will be held to a standard of empathy, not just efficiency. A few scattered claps echoed in the lounge, uncertain at first, then growing. It wasn't applause for power. It was recognition, of change, maybe, or of finally being seen. Darnell raised his voice just enough for the room, and the glass wall beyond it, to hear. SkyConnect was never meant to be an airline that only looked good in ads. We're supposed to feel good in real life. And today, we begin a new chapter. Not a press release. A reset. He turned to Terrell again. You said it's not the first time this happened to you. Terrell nodded. No, sir. It's the last, Darnell said. On this airline, it is. Terrell gave a small, stunned nod. A shift had occurred. Something structural. Something honest. Darnell looked at the crowd once more. This lounge is staying open today. But only under new guidance. He turned to Dolores. You still know the system? Dolores blinked. I could run it with my eyes closed. Then you're in charge. Starting now. The entire room seemed to inhale. Dolores stepped behind the desk slowly, like she was walking into the sun after a long winter. Her hands moved with practiced ease. She tapped keys, opened up access screens, checked inventory logs. All of it smooth. Confident. Unshaken. As the minutes passed, the lounge transformed. Passengers were greeted with warmth and dignity. Dolores walked the floor, chatting softly with guests, asking how their flights had been. Terrell got a warm coffee and a private corner with charging ports. Even the mother whose child had dropped the toy earlier got a check-in from a newly attentive staffer. Outside the glass wall, travelers walked by and looked in, curious. But inside, the energy was different now. SkyConnect was changing. And it started with scuffed sneakers. By noon, reporters had arrived. Word was out. A CEO had shown up unannounced and exposed bias not through a viral video or internal memo, but by being quietly present, listening, and choosing action over optics. When Darnell finally stepped away to leave, Dolores walked with him to the door. I'm proud of you, she said softly. He smiled. I'm just getting started. Good, she said. Because this company still has a lot of people to see. He nodded, stepped back into the terminal, and disappeared into the crowd, no entourage, no camera crew. Just a man in a hoodie and worn sneakers. Changing everything. The days that followed sent ripples through the entire airline industry. News outlets ran headlines like, CEO in disguise exposes lounge bias, SkyConnect overhauls culture overnight. From hoodies to healing, how one quiet visit sparked an industry reckoning. But for Darnell Whitaker, the goal was never the headlines. It was the people. He didn't return to the office for interviews or boardroom applause. Instead, he kept moving. Quietly. Airport to airport. Terminal to terminal. No formal entourage, no CEO name tag. Just a man watching, listening, and stepping in where others turned away. And people noticed. At a Chicago gate, a crew manager spotted a janitor being spoken down to by a pilot and stopped it, firmly and publicly. In Atlanta, a gate agent reported a supervisor's pattern of discriminatory scheduling, citing Darnell's actions as inspiration. In Seattle, Dolores Green, now officially promoted to National Director of Guest Experience, launched a training program called Ground Level Up to retrain employees on respect, implicit bias, and emotional intelligence. It wasn't a perfect transformation. There were still issues. Still complaints. Still old habits trying to reassert themselves. But now, there was also a pulse. A culture beginning to breathe differently. One moment captured it all. A month after the incident, Terrell was back at the airport, this time traveling with his daughter for her dance competition. Same hoodie. Same headphones. But something was different. As he stepped into the lounge, a staffer greeted him with a warm smile and offered a bottle of water. "Welcome back, Mr. Williams," she said. "Let us know if you need anything." Terrell blinked. "You remember me?" She nodded. "We all do." Just then, Dolores walked over. "Terrell," she said. "Glad to see you again." He smiled wide. "I almost didn't come back. After everything." "I know," she said gently. "But sometimes, healing starts by returning. Even when it's hard." They talked for a few minutes. No cameras. No spectacle. Just people reconnecting. As Terrell turned to leave for his gate, he paused. "That CEO, Darnell. Do you think he'll keep doing what he did that day?" Dolores nodded, a quiet pride in her voice. "He already is. He's out there. Every day. Watching the thread lines we all thought no one noticed." She pointed toward the windows overlooking the bustling concourse. And just beyond the glass, in the sea of travelers, a figure moved through the crowd, hoodie up, sneakers worn, and eyes open. Darnell Whitaker, CEO of SkyConnect, walked with the people. Not above them. With them. Because sometimes, the most powerful leaders don't change the world from corner offices. They do it from the floor. From the lines. From the overlooked moments. From the silence. And in that silence, they hear everything. Days passed since Darnell's memo went out. The halls of SkyConnect started to feel different, subtle shifts that weren't always easy to see but impossible to ignore. The frontline employees, once hesitant to speak up, began sharing stories in team meetings. Stories about how they'd felt overlooked, silenced, or judged unfairly, not just by passengers but by their own colleagues and supervisors. Managers were required to attend intensive training sessions. Not the usual, check-the-box, seminars, but raw, honest conversations about bias, respect, and the power each person holds to either lift others up or tear them down. And then came the audits. Mystery shoppers and observers were sent into every lounge, every gate, every SkyConnect location, posing as regular passengers wearing hoodies, carrying backpacks, just like Darnell had done. The reports came back with harsh truths, uneven service, microaggressions, dismissive attitudes. But also glimpses of hope. Employees who had changed their tone, who greeted every guest with genuine warmth regardless of their appearance. At the next company-wide meeting, Darnell addressed everyone again. "We're not perfect," he admitted. "We still have a long way to go. But what we're doing now isn't about a quick fix or a PR headline. It's about rebuilding trust. Trust with our guests. Trust with our team. Trust with ourselves. He paused and looked around the room, making eye contact with as many faces as he could. We're grounded right now, yes. But that's so we can prepare for a real takeoff, one where every person who walks through our doors feels valued, seen, and respected. From that day forward, SkyConnect didn't just promise change, they lived it. The quiet biases didn't disappear overnight, but they were named, confronted, and dismantled piece by piece. Passengers noticed. Employees noticed. And slowly, the company's reputation began to rise. Not for how luxurious their lounges were, or how many flights they offered, but for the respect and dignity they showed every single person. Because leadership isn't about grand speeches or flashy moments. It's about what happens when no one's watching. Months later, Darnell found himself walking through the terminal again, not as the CEO who issued memos and gave speeches, but as a listener, a learner, and a leader still in progress. He stopped by Gate 18, where a young agent named Maria was helping an elderly passenger who had just arrived from a long flight. Maria smiled patiently, taking the time to explain how to navigate the airport shuttle. Darnell watched quietly for a moment, then approached. "Hey Maria," he said softly. She looked up, startled but pleased to see him. "Hi, Mr. Darnell. What brings you here?" "I just wanted to say thank you. You're doing exactly what we talked about, treating every guest like they matter, no matter what." Maria blushed. "I'm just doing my job." "But your job matters," Darnell replied. "And you're showing everyone what respect really looks like." As he walked away, a fellow employee joined Maria and said, "I heard the CEO's been checking in with everyone personally. It's different this time." Maria nodded. "It really is." Outside the terminal, the city buzzed with its usual noise, but inside SkyConnect, something quieter but far more powerful was growing, an unshakable culture of dignity and inclusion. Darnell knew the work wasn't done. Change like this isn't a destination but a journey. A daily commitment. But he also knew one undeniable truth: when people feel seen, heard, and valued, they don't just fly, they soar. Later that week, Darnell gathered the entire SkyConnect leadership team in a glass-walled conference room overlooking the runway. The hum of airplanes taking off and landing was a constant reminder of what was at stake. He stood at the head of the table, eyes scanning the faces of executives and managers. Some still hesitant, others beginning to see the change. "We can't just make promises," Darnell said firmly. "This company's future depends on what we do every day. That means accountability, transparency, and real empathy, starting with us." One of the younger managers raised her hand cautiously. "What if people resist? What if they don't want to change?" Darnell nodded, appreciating the honesty. "Then we have to decide if this company is truly the place for them. Because growth requires discomfort. Comfort is the enemy of progress." A silence fell over the room, heavy but purposeful. He pulled out a folder filled with feedback reports from frontline employees, stories of small kindnesses, but also painful reminders of the past. "This isn't just about policies or training," he said, voice steady but passionate. "It's about culture. About every person who walks through our doors feeling safe, respected, and empowered. We don't just serve flights. We serve people. And people deserve better." He looked around again, locking eyes with each leader. "We're not perfect. But from today forward, every decision, every interaction, every moment has to reflect that truth." The room erupted in a mix of nods, murmurs of agreement, and even a few hesitant smiles. As the meeting broke up, Darnell lingered a moment, reflecting on how far they'd come, and how far they still had to go. Outside, a young boy tugged on his mother's hand, watching a plane ascend into the pink evening sky. Darnell smiled quietly. That boy's future, and the futures of millions like him, depended on the choices they made today. And he was ready to lead the way. Days later, Darnell walked through the terminal wearing no badge, no suit jacket, just his company polo and a warm smile. He stopped at a small cafe where a barista greeted him. "Morning, Mr. CEO," she said, teasing. "Or should I say Darnell now?" He chuckled. "Call me Darnell. How's everything going here?" She looked around. "Better. People are watching. Trying harder. It's different. That's what we're aiming for," he said. "Every day, one step at a time." As he turned to leave, a young employee approached nervously. "Sir, can I say something? I've worked here 5 years, but I never felt heard before. Now, it feels like maybe I matter." Darnell's eyes softened. "You always mattered. We just forgot to show it. And I'm sorry for that. But we're changing, together." Later that afternoon, Darnell received an email from a longtime customer who had witnessed a frontline staff member intervene when a passenger was being unfairly treated. "Thank you for making a difference," the message read. "It gives me hope to see leadership that cares." He reread the note, feeling a quiet pride. Change wouldn't be easy or fast. But it was real. And it was beginning to fly.